This is a weekly community television program produced by club members of Seroptimus International of Novato. My name is Carol Bennett. Today I have with me a special guest, Dr. Clara McNamee, who has had a fabulous career and continues to have unending energy. Her most recent accomplishment is to build a hospital in Nepal and develop a nurse training program. For ease of viewing, we're going to break this program into 3 segments. First, we're going to talk to Clara about her background and how she became interested in helping grow women in underdeveloped countries. The second segment is going to be on focusing on Nepal and getting the hospital growing, and what she does currently to raise funds to continue it. The third segment will be about Clara's involvement with the hospital, perhaps some touching stories, and her new 5-year plan to train nurses. Watch all 3 segments for the full story. So, here we are, Clara. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Good. Well, tell us about your fabulous and rich background.
Where do I begin? As my father said, I'm a perpetual student, and it has served me well. I started out with degrees in biochemistry, and then went into research and met my husband. And he was a military man, so we traveled a lot. And every 4 years, we pick up and move.
Oh dear, that's hard in some ways, but for you it sounds like it worked.
Well, we went from the East Coast, and then we moved into the southern states for a while, and then we were transferred to Hawaii.
Hawaii.
And in Hawaii, I couldn't find my place, so I thought, I'll go back to school. So I got a degree in oceanography. But being a woman, I didn't find a job available. And so I decided, well, let's see what's next. And then he got transferred to Washington.
Washington State?
D.C.
Oh, Washington, D.C.
And then he thought maybe I should go to medical school. He was a pathologist.
Okay.
So I did. But there it was an assertion of being a woman on your own. And so I was the only woman in the class. And I learned how to deal with that in various ways. I found a voice. And so then we were transferred back here to San Francisco. And it was difficult because restarting practices is almost impossible.
Right.
And losing your patients is heartbreaking.
Yes.
So I decided, what now? So I went to a party one time, and I met a gentleman, and he was asking what I did, and I said, it's more what I did do. I'm doing nothing now. He said, well, what's your qualifications? And I told him about the education. He said, well, I have a job for you if you'll take it. And it was teaching chemistry within the walls of San Quentin.
Oh, lovely.
I learned a lot.
I bet.
Funny story about that.
Actually, I've heard that that's a really good and fun job.
Well, it was. I treated them with respect, and I got respect in return.
Right.
I mean, I was there to educate them, not to be a female or a person. And my lab aide was, I called him $1,000 Johnny. He sold the best weed in the joint. But then I found that there was more need for my education. So they were, Marine General Hospital had an opening. They were opening up an adolescent recovery center, which was a treatment center for drug abuse with teenagers. So I applied, got the job, and watched the building being built. And we had a marvelous program.
Interesting. I understand it has a reputation still to this day.
Well, unfortunately, insurance companies fail to cover or cease to cover therapy treatment for addicts. And many people were mortgaging their homes, so it closed.
Oh dear.
And I had all these students sitting there, and I thought, there's got to be another way. So I thought, hit the education part. So I went to Mary Jane Burke, who's superintendent of Marin County.
And she still is right now.
And she still is. And she took a chance on me.
Excellent.
And so I started a trial program. Then I saw that had to be careful in a classroom with public education because we were using the 12-step model. So I talked to her and I said, look, the government's giving 100 charter school grants. Let's apply. And we got it.
Absolutely
With her
fabulous.
help.
Good.
And then we became a charter school, the very first one in Marin.
What was it called?
It was called Phoenix Academy.
Phoenix Academy. Very nice.
And we served both genders and ages 14 to 18. So we had an academic program that was very strong. And then we had a therapeutic program, which was very productive and very effective. And for 28 years,
28 years.
we were Phoenix Academy with the therapeutic part. And I see some of those patients now. They're productive, they're employed, they have families, and they're functional people.
Very good.
The program was really good.
So how did you make the segue into helping women, particularly in
Well, women and
underdeveloped
children
countries?
have always been my focus because I've always felt, growing up with 4 boys in a family, that women had to be better to get what they had.
Okay,
So that's been my mantra.
interesting. And so some of your traveling came into play with this?
It did. My husband and I loved Nepal and Tibet, so we traveled there a good bit. And then after he was gone, I decided to go back just to retrace our steps. So I went back to Nepal, and at the same time, my stockbroker, Steve Gross, with Morgan Stanley, was in Nepal with his therapeutic group, with his travel group, and they were doing healthcare.
Now,
So-
didn't you take a side trip to Afghanistan or something
Oh,
in the meanwhile that you told me about?
that was a horror story.
Uh-huh.
When I retired, retirement is a funny phase of life. You want to be useful, but you have no meaning or identity.
Oh.
And
Until
wake
you
up-
find it.
But you have to look for it.
True.
And so immediately I thought, all right, I've got to go. I've got to give my time to the lesser people,
Okay.
People that need help. In some way I could help. So there was a environmental group called Bare Roots,
Bare roots. Okay.
and they were planting trees in Afghanistan because the Taliban had come in and cut all the orchards.
Oh,
So there
dear.
was no place for them to hide.
Okay.
So I decided that was for me. But when I got there, I saw I had to be so secretive. We wore the burqa, the hijab, and we were actually in a guest house, very confined, with a 24-hour guard, armed guard.
Yeah.
So I thought, no, and my roommate, who I love dearly, she was a retired Marine officer. She left. She said, enough. But I stayed because I did commit. But it wasn't where we should have been.
And that's why then, when you had the opportunity to go to Nepal, you thought,
Well,
that's where I need to be.
I thought I'd go back to Nepal just to erase the memory
Uh-huh.
of Afghanistan. And my stockbroker, Steve, was in Nepal with his group.
And that's Steve Gross.
That's Steve Gross, and he came to pick me up, and I met the group at the monastery. And it was really, it was heartwarming to see how dedicated they were, and it was something I could do. So the next time Steve went, I was part of that group.
So
And
that's,
It's from 2012, and I've gone every year.
great.
And we have increased the infrastructure by amazing amounts of buildings. And we've given them a community hospital that serves not only the area of, they're in the Kabul district, and it's Rajbash is the name of the village. Excuse me.
Okay, so you saw the vision, you saw the light, you saw your dream. So let's take a quick break. And meanwhile, if anybody wanted to contact Steve Gross, it was stevegross@earthlink.net or the website www.dcwcnepal-us.org. And let's take a quick break to part 2 to see how you brought that vision to become reality. Thank you.